type that they don't smile, they don't have a sense of humor, they don't have any fun. That's not true at all. We love to sleep in coffins and have a great time and party to some of the greatest music on the planet. So, and we have excellent fashion taste. So, I just want to put that out there. But I do personally thank you. From me to you, thank you very much. I appreciate your comments and your kind words on hanging out tonight. I appreciate it.
Well, you know what I like about when you're on the show? It's like, I'm talking to you face to face, like we're just sitting back, and just bullshitting. And pardon the language, people, but I feel very comfortable talking to you. I mean, you're easy to talk to and very approachable. And I would like to, possibly get you back on maybe late August or first part of September if it's possible. I mean, and find out what more stuff you're doing. Yeah.
I'd love to. I'm sure I'll have more news about what's going on. We can talk about what's coming up in the fall and other projects and how the Devil Frame is coming along and what hopefully some more news, some new news on where people can catch Dark Realm and things like that. But yeah, I'm a chatty mofo, and it's funny because I get that on social media a lot. People are like, "Oh, you're so genuine," and I'm like, "Well, this is just like I said earlier. It is me. It's me, and I look like this, and I dress like this, and my eyes don't match, and I'm a big bohemian, gothic weirdo that is an actor and a gothic illusionist, and I love all the same strange, weird stuff that you do, and the audience does, and everything. So thank you. I mean, I love talking to you. You're a great host, and you're easy to talk to, and I love the subject matter. I love all the dark, weird, what I like to call dark, sticky fun. All of this stuff is great fun. So anytime you want to have me back, just let me know. I'm back whenever you want. And thank you to the audience because you guys apparently have been responding and asking questions and stuff. So thank you guys for listening and hanging out with us. And, go to FitzgeraldRealm.com, get a Dark Realm, sign up on the email list, and find me on social media because I'd love to, you see you guys showing up and you can come and chat with me, online and stuff like that. But thank you, Gary. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Ron. Well, you have a good weekend that's coming up, and I could say stay out of trouble, but I don't know. But
Friday the 13th, it'll be awesome. I mean, you got a big show. I've got a big, the Devil Frame. I've got a big screening and meeting on that on Friday the 13th, which is a great geek out fun for me. So, everybody enjoy your Friday the 13th.
Okay. Hey, Michael, I need you to hang on for a minute. Okay, Ron, well, you have a great one, and say hi to your other for me. And, hey, we'll probably chat on Facebook between now and then, too.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to it, Gary. Thank you so much. And thanks again to everybody listening.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Night.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks.
So, totally different than talking about UFOs, isn't it?
Oh gosh, he was really refreshing though. What a good interview and very informative. About the movie side of things. And how these independent films are being made out there. I mean, my gosh, to get that kind of response from the Sundance Music Festival, that is quite an honor in itself. Just to be picked to be screened at Sundance, so. He's an interesting fella.
Oh, yeah, he's so easy to talk to. I think this was probably his fourth time being on the show. I mean, the listeners out there, they just love him because, you know what? He's not phony. What you hear is laughing and all that stuff. That's him being his normal self, which makes it unique. I do want to say one thing, making movies nowadays, because nowadays is so much different than going back 20 years ago. I've had a couple of movie producers on the past month, and directors on my show. And, it's not like it used to be. Now you can go out, and I hate to say it, for around $2,500, you can go buy a camera that is cinema quality now for $2,500. And then you go spend maybe another $800 to $1,000 for lenses. There you got your motion picture camera. Like Hollywood and Vine, if I remember right, was done with a regular cinema camera and done with a bunch of little, like, Panasonic type of, digital cameras. A lot of the movies now, especially the ones that we were talking about, are being done on cameras with people with a budget of maybe a couple $1,000, and they're producing a full feature movie. And that's unheard of. I mean, you back, in the film days, or even back on the video days where the big video cameras, you were talking mucho bucks.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Matter of fact, Gary, when I was a young man, I worked at Universal Studios, started out as a tour guide, and I used to work in the production building later on, doing films, kind of working on film projects for different big production companies. And I just remember a big studio like Universal Studios, spending, just sitting down and storyboarding out a project and literally throwing like millions of dollars, and nowadays, $100 million is nothing, to make a movie. But in those days, $1 million was a lot of money, for a film production. Matter of fact, I've got a real fun story you might like.
Oh, do you got about another 20 minutes? Because it's not 11 o'clock yet, so I mean, we can certainly go.
Yeah, I've got some time for sure. I'd love to be able to hang out with you here till 11 o'clock.
Well, we can go 21 minutes. Okay, so there we go.
Okay, super. Well, let me tell you this fun story that I remember from my youth. After being a tour guide at Universal Studios, I got hooked up with a small production company that worked on the lower lot that was Cheech and Chong's production company. You remember Tommy Chong and and Cheech Marin and those guys? Fantastic comedy routine, about the 70s drug genre and all that kind of stuff. But believe it or not, both of them were real health freaks and, go to the gym. They went to Vince's gym, the famous one in L.A. all the time. And but they were fantastic actors. And I remember their agent, his name was Howard Brown at the time, he had convinced Universal that because Cheech and Chong had sold millions and millions, literally, comedy albums over the previous decade, from the 60s to the 70s, that they might be able to do a movie. And so I can imagine the blue suits up in the tower at Universal looking at Mr. Brown and thinking, you got to be kidding me. This drug, comedy routine couple are going to be making a film that we're going to produce.
They probably asked him, were you smoking anything that they gave you?
Exactly, because Universal back in those days was kind of like the IBM, the real staunchy, conservative, but business oriented, film company. So at one point, Howard Brown decided he actually convinced Universal to do a film with Cheech and Chong, and they could have their own production company on the lower lot, and they could come up with, whatever they think they could do. And the idea was that if they could at least recreate some of their hilarious comedy routines that they had on their record albums in a movie form, they thought maybe that would be sellable, to the public, and then probably the young public, the young folks out there as well. So they decided to give Cheech and Chong and Howard Brown $1 million to do a film. Now, this was in the middle 1970s. $1 million was hardly anything, of course, even back then, for a film production. But they figured, well, they'll just, kind of placate the manager and see how, if the thing comes out. If it didn't come out, of course, they can refuse to distribute it, the whole deal. So they actually came up with a movie that consisted of pretty much a lot of their comedy routines, strung together on a very thin storyline. And they filmed it, one summer, probably in about 3 months on the back lot of Universal Studios. That film was called Up in Smoke.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember that movie.
I remember. Wasn't it? They were in a van at one point, and all this, the smoke was just pouring out of the thing.
They could barely see where they were driving because the marijuana smoke was so thick in the van. That was just one of their routines. And, of course, their famous routine, Dave's not home, that kind of stuff was all in there. And it was a great movie, but what the shock was to Universal is that film that summer, when it was released, made $78 million. I mean, the teenagers were going to seeing it 7 times. You know, it was just a huge first kind of genre movie, you know, for that era of time. So what happened was that Universal then brought them back and said, hey, you can do whatever you want. We're giving you as much money as you need to do a film. And I was lucky enough to become the publicist on that film as a young guy out of the tour guide office there, and a couple other guys. We call ourselves the Brat Pack back then, working for Cheech and Chong, doing their films, you know, on the lower lot because they had had such a success on the first movie. So I worked on the film called Cheech and Chong's Next Movie. And it was hilarious. These guys, it was funny. Both of them, see, Tommy is the real writer, the real genius writer and director of the two.
Now I gotta say something about Tommy. You know, he's Canadian. And you know, he's been a really advocate for marijuana for years. He's had cancer, he's had health issues, and he claims that, you know, smoking marijuana has kept him alive. And, you know, I think it will, if not for him, because he's had a major push for years to legalize marijuana in Canada. You know, it's legal now in Canada. And, you know, my hat's off to him. You know, I don't smoke it, but you know what? I don't think it should have been. I think it should be legal. I mean, in that case, if it isn't legal, then alcohol should not be legal because I classify it about the same thing.
Right. Yeah. No, he's just a real stalwart person. Actually, Tommy lived in Bel Air down there in Beverly Hills. He wasn't just in the lower Beverly Hills part. He lived in Bel Air. And Cheech lived in Santa Monica. They both had beautiful compounds where they lived at. And Cheech was the actor of the two. This guy could do voices like that were amazing. You know, he was quite a comic actor at the time. So both of them would come into the conference room in their production office where all of us young guys were working, helping out in the film. And they would just hang out in the conference room with a yellow pad and kind of put down notes of what they thought they might want to film that day. And so there was no script ahead of time as far as, you know, final product before they shot it. They would go out and shoot stuff on the back lot that they just thought of that morning.
Yeah, I was going to say,
of course,
I read something about, you know, they kind of didn't go by script so much. They ad-libbed it, most of it.
Yes, they did. Matter of fact, the song that Cheech wrote, actually with Tommy, called Mexican American.
Oh, yeah.
It's a hilarious scene in the movie, Cheech and Chong's Next Movie, where they pretty much just ad-lib Tommy sitting on a stool playing an electric guitar. And the electric guitar looks almost like an automobile. It's huge, and it's got all these mirrors hanging off of it and everything. And Cheech is singing the song, and it just comes up with kind of like off the top of his head. He actually wrote the song or part of the song just ad-libbing, you know, during the filming of the thing, because that's what they do. They go out and they film something and see if it worked.
Well, it worked in a lot of them. I mean, you look how many they had before they had a kind of falling out. I mean, they produced some really interesting stuff for and you know what? I still like watching it. You know, I like that. No sticking badges, or, you know, born in the USA. Yeah, I just love that. Yeah.
Exactly. That's one of my favorite as well. Born in the USA. You know, Cheech's dad was an L.A. cop in East L.A., and he actually grew up in East L.A. And, man, did he have the lingo down and the strut and the whole thing. And, of course, he met Tommy up in Canada, in Vancouver, where Tommy's dad had a strip club. And Tommy was like the local, Tommy was the local kind of like MC, During his younger days, he would MC the different acts that would come on. They actually had some kind of vaudeville kind of acts that would